I think this video might bring in some new people that don't normally watch my videos. So if you're new here, my name is Brian, and I raise sheep and goats and have a monthly subscription where I sell sheep and goat meat. So I am doing this commercially. It's not just a hobby, it is an actual side occupation, side job for me. And one thing I've started doing recently is rotationally grazing my goats, which presents many, many challenges because goats are known to test fencing. And I've tried lots of different types of fencing. And what I've decided is that 5-foot animal panel is the way to go if you're trying to rotationally graze goats. So I've been driving in dozens and dozens of T-posts every single week. And I've had soft tissue damage, my wrists, my elbows, my shoulders, even in my back. You start to feel joints where you hardly even knew you had joints. And so I knew that this method of rotationally grazing goats was high intensity and that it was not sustainable the way I have been doing it. And I knew I needed to innovate. So this is one of the innovations that I've come up with, and I'm not positive whether it's going to work or not. So we're going to kind of explore together and see whether this new idea I have actually works. And what it is basically creating an electronic T-post driver. You can find gas-powered T-post drivers. They're, $400 or $500, and that's fine. But I myself, I'm doing this partly as a way of being mindful of the environment, right? Rotationally grazing, it improves the soil. I'm raising the animals on grass. I'm not raising them on grain, so it reduces the amount of nasty chemicals and things that have to get used out in the cornfields and soy fields and all that. And so it doesn't make sense for me to, go out here, burn a bunch of fossil fuels with a gas-powered T-post driver if I'm out here trying to, do things that are beneficial to the environment. And so an electronic T-post driver is a vastly different carbon profile. So this is the basis of it all. This is my electric jackhammer. Super cheap. I got this on Amazon a couple years ago for about $190. And this thing is, it's like got tons of 5-star reviews. It's never let me down. And it's, the only thing that's going to make it kind of awkward, it's not battery powered. It is plug-in. And so I'm going to have to string power cables everywhere. And that's a bummer. But aside from that, it's a great little unit. It was worth every penny. I've used it a ton. And I bought this bit specifically to use to convert it into a T-post driver. I'm just going to weld a tube onto the side of this and have that be my T-post driver. And then I'll place the unit on top of the T-post, have the jackhammer drive the T-post instead of me doing it by hand. So that's the vision. We'll see if it works. So I've got this scrap piece of steel pipe, and then I also got some mild steel plate that I'm going to weld onto the end. Obviously I'm going to cut this flush and then weld this onto the bit for the jackhammer.
Be white that are going to lay at least
J feeders would make as big of something different years in my grow packing cages. So let me show you. And basically what's the coil weight?
This is the layout. I'm not really following any particular plan or anything. Just kind of making this up as I go. So I'm picturing I'll kind of weld it along this side here. So I need a length 30 centimeters where I'll be able to weld it along this side and then have a little bit extended out from the bottom. I'm going to weld a cap on the end of that using mild steel. So I'll have that to rest against the T-post. And then, this will be oscillating back and forth, driving this tube up and down, and that'll drive the T-post, in theory. My shop's not really set up for metal work, so this is a wood miter saw, but I do have a metal blade on there. And then these plastic bits in the back, they'll start to melt with all the sparks. So I just stuffed a wet paper towel back there to keep the sparks off of most of the plastic, as much of the plastic as I can. So just doing what I can with what I got. All right, so there's my length. Pretty straightforward, and then just weld something onto the end there. Okay, so next up, I have this 1/8 inch mild steel flat bar. This is not thick enough for my needs. Ideally, it would be a 1/4 inch. I'm just going to weld 2 of these together to make a solid 1/4 inch. It won't be solid, but it'll be thicker 1/4 inch plate. And then that's going to go on the end, and that'll form the cap. That'll form the cap on the T-post driver. All right, well, it's certainly ugly, but I think it'll do the trick. I think I got decent penetration. And then, yeah, I'll weld another layer on to make it even thicker. This is rounding the final bend here. I'm welding this bit onto my little pile driver, my little T-post driving tube. And I'm a pretty terrible welder. I took a couple classes in high school like 20 years ago. Never did that well with it, but I'm just making it work. Got lots of blobbies on here. I'm totally okay with that. And so I'm just gonna make a nice thick bead all the way down. This is hardened steel, so I'm curious to kind of see how this plays out. This is mild steel welding onto hardened steel. And so, first time I've really tried to weld 2 different types of steel together at the same time. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it's going to be strong enough. I think as long as I make the bead long enough, it should be strong enough. All right, so I've got my first welds all done. I'm just going to do this as a preliminary test, and I want to see if it works. So the basic idea is that I bought this bit brand new, and my thoughts are, if this doesn't work, then I can just cut this off and I'll have this bit to use for other purposes. And so I don't want to weld all the way down and then find out that it actually doesn't work and then have to cut all that off to be able to use this bit again. So I'm just going to keep it here, use it as a little test, see if this is actually going to work. And then if it works, then I can weld the rest of this on. And then I'll paint it, give it a nice coating to protect it, keep it from rusting and all that. So that's the game plan, is we'll give it a little test and see if it's worth continuing. Okay, so slide the bit in, lock it in place. And ooh, it's heavy. That's not a bad thing. It is heavy. And wow. That's interesting. Woo. All right, this is interesting. Okay, so that was 1 minute exactly. And so We'll measure it again, see how far it went down. What I noticed is that it started going down pretty steadily at first, and then it seemed to hit something hard. So it may have hit a rock down there that stopped the downward progress. So let's measure the depth at least, and we'll see what the change was over that 1 minute. So that was 6 inches in a minute. That was 5 inches in a minute, and I guess it may have hit something down in the soil again, because it did kind of move at first and then it got hung up and stopped again. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going on, because that's 2 posts in a row. It very well could have hit 2 rocks, right? The last post and this post could have hit 2 rocks. That wouldn't surprise me, because the soil is quite rocky. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning that it only went the first one 6 inches, the other one 5 inches in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward with this. I'm going to weld the rest of the bead on there and get this to be nice and strong. And then I'm going to go ahead and use it, and we'll see how well it works, because that's really the true test, right? Is if it works, it works, and if it's a pain in the ass and it's too slow and too much effort, then it doesn't work. So we'll see where this goes. So here I am setting up an actual paddock with my new T-post driver, and it went pretty well. I did learn a few tricks along the way that made it a lot easier and made it to where the T-post would drive down, and if it got stuck, I knew kind of how to get it unstuck, basically. And so I was pretty excited. I went in and told my wife to come check it out, because she knows how much work it had been to shift all these paddocks around using the handheld T-post driver. So I was pretty excited to show it off. And so even though there is a learning curve and there's still more that needed to be figured out, it's a very, very promising start, and I'm excited to have it.